Welcome, welcome, welcome. Wow, folks. Whew. That was a close one. That was a close one. New York Mets pull it out, winning 5-4 over the Diamondbacks. And folks, we needed this one. Mets getting back to 10 games over 500. Um, wow. All I gotta say is wow. The Mets, it really felt like they were trying to give that game away in a phenomenal way. I mean, the Mets went into the eighth inning being up 5-1, and I'm feeling good. And Daniel Nunez is coming in. I'm like, oh shoot, Daniel's coming in. Then he walks to the mound, and I'm like, wow, I haven't seen this guy in a while. Be honest, be frank, I'm sure we all noticed the guy put on a couple pounds. And we all wish him the best. We want him to be in the best places possible, be in the best physical condition. And it seems like maybe besides the injury, conditioning might have been a reason why Daniel Nunez took a little longer than what was originally thought that he would take for this injury. All right, whatever. So Daniel Nunez comes in 5-1, and the guy cannot find the strike zone. Cannot find the freaking strike zone at all. And you know what? He's putting everybody on base. He's putting everybody on base, and Carlos Mendoza's looking, putting his head down, finding when is he going to put in Reed Garrett into the game. Finally, it's bases loaded, and now Reed Garrett comes into the game. It's 5-1. They're talking about Reed Garrett not surrendering any inherited runners, and, that's hard to do. And in this situation, coming in with not one out, 0 outs, and bases loaded, that was going to be tough. But I'll tell you this, before I even get into what happened and all the other various, I don't want to say concerns, there were a lot of good things with this game, but if Nunez is not ready to be in a big league game or be in this spot, Carlos Mendoza's got to know it. David Stearns has got to know it. The guy didn't look like he was ready to be in a big league game. Maybe it's going to take, maybe it's going to take him getting kicked around to be ready, but he didn't look ready. He did not look ready. He didn't look sharp. I don't know how he felt physically. He just did not look ready. It didn't look like a major league outing from Daniel Nunez, at least today. Maybe next outing he'll be 100 times better, but I noticed a couple things, and it really translated to the field, and it wasn't good. All right, so 5-1, Reed Garrett now gets onto the mound. It's a very difficult situation, of course, to get out of. And I'm just crossing my fingers because at this point I'm a little mad at Carlos Mendoza, but it is what it is. All right, so the situation comes in, and he strikes out Pavin Smith right away. So you got 1 out, bases still loaded, and you strike out the first guy. Great job. Next guy up, Josh Naylor comes up. He singles on a sharp line drive to center field. Then you have Perdomo scores, Corbin Carroll to third, Marte goes to second base. It is 5-2, and you still have 1 out. The next guy, Eugenio Suarez, hits a bomb to center field, and I'm like, damn, game tied. This is, honestly, very, very bad. But it turns out it would be a long single, and the bases, which should have been cleared because of a running mistake by Josh Naylor, he literally, I don't know, maybe he thought the ball was going to get caught. He literally stopped at second, and that prevented Suarez from even getting a double. This guy, it looked like it was going to be a home run to center field. All right, it wasn't. At that point, it was 5-4, and the Mets' lead was slipping. Thankfully, Gabriel Moreno was the next guy up. Boom, strikeout, huge strikeout by Reed Garrett. And the next batter still had an opportunity after that. Lourdes Gurriel would pop up, and that would end the inning. But folks, that was essentially the ball game, right? The ball game. Okay, you think the Mets have a good chance. Diaz coming in the ninth. And here comes my second issue. And folks, we're going to talk about good stuff too. I just, let's talk about what needs to get better first. And folks, if you didn't get a chance, like, subscribe. We love our baseball here. We love our Mets. We want to see our Mets as world champions. That's why some of these things have to get ironed out. All right, so you go to the ninth inning, and we have Edwin Diaz coming into the game, and Edwin has not pitched that much in the last week. He's fresh, feeling good, this, and that. And just a game note, Luis Angel Acuna comes in and, he remains in the game. He just goes to play second base at this time. All right, so a defensive switch. All right, so Alec Thomas is on the he's at the plate, he's batting, and again hits a grounder to Pete Alonso. And how many times have we seen this? How many damn times have we seen this? Hits a grounder to Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso, all he's got to do is toss the ball, a nice, easy to toss to the pitcher, and it would be an out. One of those, you do these drills as a first baseman and a pitcher thousands of times throughout the year, hundreds of times at least in spring training. Maybe thousands is an exaggeration, but that's over the course of a career. All right, so it's a lot of times you do these drills, but Pete Alonso has a tendency of this ball's sailing. The ball, again, he gets a ground ball, and Edwin Diaz is going over to first, and Pete Alonso errors the ball, throws it over Diaz, and it could have been a disaster. It could have been a freaking disaster. You have the guy at first base who's a speedster. He's the tying runner. No out. No out. That is not the way to start off the ninth inning. Not the way. So after a disaster of the eighth inning, a disaster of the bottom of the eighth, oh no. But then, you had an amazing play. So the runner of the Diamondbacks trying to get at the scoring position tries to steal second, and you have Alvarez throwing a ball that he threw it with velocity but no control. It literally took Lindor up towards first base, and I don't know how the hell he did it. He caught the ball, a ball that could have went into center field, and he managed to tag the foot of the runner, and they call it out. But of course, it's a play so close that you have to challenge it. So again, when they're doing the replay, they're saying that, okay, the second foot that he touched, the hand might have got in first. But it looked like the glove actually touched the first foot. And I'm like, this is a phenomenal play. If you didn't see it, this was it was a good velocity throw by Alvarez, so you give Alvarez credit. But Lindor, the runner-up in MVP, hit a 3-run bomb. This was Lindor's game. Lindor's game, ending the 2-game losing streak. Lindor with a phenomenal tag, gets the guy. It turns out after the review, there wasn't enough to overturn it because it was an out call on the field. And thank God, because I think the count was 2-0 or 3-0. So quite possibly Diaz could have been, walking another guy. It could have been first and second. No, it would have been a disaster. But the momentum swung into the favor of the New York Mets with that particular play, getting the first out, nabbing the potential lead runner. And, you got one out, court stealing. Geraldo Perdomo would then fly out to Brandon Nimmo. It's 2 outs. A lot of Mets fans are exhaling at this point. I was exhaling. I know that. Then Corbin Carroll comes to the plate. They start showing highlights of Corbin Carroll homering off Diaz last year. And, of course, put that in the minds of Mets fans. Of course. Okay. Good job with SNY. You like the drama. Diaz facing Corbin Carroll. And Diaz this time coming out on top, striking out Corbin Carroll, securing the 5-4 victory. And this game had a lot of good things, too. I spoke about the bad things, but this game had a lot of good. Lindor with the huge 3-run bomb in the 7th inning. That's what gave the Mets a 5-1 lead. And at that point, the Mets were, trying to make this into a laugher. But great job, Lindor. It was a ball like off his shoe tops. It was against the side arming. I forgot the pitcher's name, but a very good stroke by Lindor. and Lindor. He's just being ultra clutch and making the plays when necessary. Soto coming up next. He hit a double off the wall. So Soto looks progressively better. Pete Alonso again, securing our early lead, hitting a two-run bomb in the fourth. So in the fourth inning, you have a two-run bomb by Pete. In the seventh inning, you got a three-run bomb by Lindor, and our two offensive weapons, our two offensive superstars, again, provide all of the offense that we would essentially have today. But you know what? I just want to comment on Pete, right? At the plate, he did make that throwing error, but Pete, you look at him. The guy is ultra, uber confident on the plate. Uber confident, right? Last year he was wailing out balls 2 feet outside, no confidence. But then you also look, and this is where I give Pete a ton of credit. Mark my word, Pete was offended by last year, what happened in the offseason. Pete put in the work. Not only is the man in the right mental space, not only is he there confident, but you could see his body, his approach, his legs all look a lot stronger. The way he stands up, the way he moves, he's more flexible. You could see his the way he stands in the box is different. The way he swings, his aggressive approach. I mean, not the way he swung in the fourth inning and hit that bomb, that 425-foot bomb. He didn't take many swings like that last year. He certainly did not. So he is feeling good. He is certainly balanced on the plate. I think he has got 45 hits on the year. The guy is super, he is super locked in. I mean, I've never, ever seen Pete Alonso more locked in than he is right now. And this is the complete hitter, Pete Alonso. I mean, this is not just the power Pete Alonso. And everybody was, oh, you got to keep Pete because he can hit you 40 bombs. This guy is one of the best hitters / power hitters in the game right now. Top three, right? You got Judge, you got Alonso, then you got a couple other, guys having a phenomenal start. But, okay, maybe you want to put him in top five. But Pete Alonso all around right now is doing very, very, very well. So you give him a ton of credit. Again, he's putting in the work. And Pete's showing you how important having balance at the plate is. And I think that's what Juan Soto's big issue has been thus far. He's been very off balance, Juan Soto. He's been ahead of the off-speed pitch. He's been out in front and, he's just, a little off here and there. I mean, he hit that screaming double in the seventh inning. That was good, but still, like Juan Soto, take a note from Pete, get your balance, get your legs off, whatever you got to do. Ask Pete what he did, whatever his off-season workout, whatever he's doing now, do the same freaking thing, because Juan Soto, as we know, has that generational talent. Again, we just need him to get going there. But Juan Soto, very solid game. He had scored a run, had a hit, 2 walks. He's batting 260 on the year, so he's slowly raising his batting average. His OPS is 820, so he's getting there. Not quite Alonso, whose OPS is 1143, and batting average for Alonso is 350. Damn! Oh my God! All right, so that is great. I also want to give credit to. I had another game note. Okay, so I had my last video. My videos are going to be honest. I mean, I come from an experience of watching almost 4 decades of baseball, almost 4 decades. So I didn't just start watching baseball yesterday. My opinions may not be the same as yours, but I wouldn't expect so. We're different people. So, a lot of people understand that. But, my last video, I said that the Mets were slumping. So I guess that was debatable. I mean, I consider the Mets to be a top 3, top 5 team in baseball. So if you're going 500 or playing a game or two under in the last 10 games, I consider that a little bit of a slump. All right, so that was the first debate. People didn't like the word that the Mets were slumping. And then the second thing is I spoke about Jeff McNeil, the Squirrel, and his potential impact on the team's chemistry. And since he came back, the team was one game under 500, and that Jeff McNeil was swinging at first pitches. His exit velocity, that when he was hitting the ball, was lowest on the team. And he had the lowest volume of pitchers per plate appearance. I mean, I said, you know what? That's not what the Mets batting approach is. They were taking pitchers. I mean, Jeff McNeil was swinging at the first pitch 55% of the time, when Lindor is only swinging at the first pitch 20% of the time. So it was just indicators that, didn't show that Jeff McNeil was in line with the team strategy. Not saying Jeff McNeil's not a good player. I'm not saying that. If you're on a team and you see one guy doing one thing and 9 guys doing another thing, 7 of those guys might not say anything. 8 of those guys might not say anything, but they will be thinking things. I remember one time, and I played on a lot of baseball teams, softball teams, this and that, all throughout my life. And I remember I had a team. One time I played, we won 3 championships in a row, and we got ourselves in another league, and we had a phenomenal team, great chemistry. And then we add the best player in the league, and we go to next season, and we're thinking, we just won 3 championships. Now we added this guy who's supposedly the MVP of the league, and our team was freaking 500. So much disappointment, and it was just because this one guy just tended to do his own thing, rubbed everyone the wrong way, and we just did not have that cohesive unit. Now, I'm not saying Jeff McNeil, is having that type of effect, but I was just asking questions. That's all. So I apologize. I'm not meaning to offend anybody. Actually, I took the video down because it was just so much negativity. And the thing is, I don't think, I would say 90% of the people with negative comments didn't even watch the video. What they did was react to the title. And the second part of the title actually explained what the video is about. But whatever. Nonetheless, I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm not. I'm just trying to give my honest opinion. And and if you're going to do a comment, try to do a useful comment, because if it's going to be just 99%, just like, nothing to do with baseball, your comment's not even going to show up. Your comment's not going to show up. We have moderators here. This is a baseball forum. We're all trying to be constructive, and that's what it's about. So, I mean, you can go for it. If you want to entertain yourself, have at it. Type whatever you want, but that's about it. All right, folks. So today, good stuff. Mets get back on track, back to winning ways, back to 10 games over 500. Griffin Canning, can't forget about him. Can't forget about Griffin Canning, 5-1 on the year. Today, gave up 6 hits, 1 earned run, 6 strikeouts, and Griffin Canning. And that was another thing. I remember, praising the signing, giving the guy $4 million. If the Mets see something that they can tweak in him, yes, they've tweaked a couple of things. Using a slider more, using his changeup, or developing that changeup with movement, with sink. I mean, the Mets have done a good job utilizing this man's repertoire. He's only 28 years old, only 28. So I really think the Mets have done a really good job of identifying a guy that's coming from the Angels, a franchise that has not typically done well with developing their pitchers. And they've done good at isolating, at evaluating a man that has potential. More than $4 million that they gave him, and they are getting the best out of him. Even if he doesn't have a good rest of the year, the fact that he is filling in so admirably for the absence of a guy like Sean Manaea, that's a great benefit of itself. But, I expect Canning to continue to develop. I mean, Keith Hernandez said it in the broadcast that he sees this kid potential. He sees that this kid is on an upward trajectory, and he expects Griffin Canning to continue to get better. And that's Keith Hernandez saying it. But I completely agree based on what we've seen in the first 6 starts of Griffin Canning. You see a lot of hope. You see a lot of potential there, and great stuff this game as well. Again, he's 5-1 on the year, and he's got a 2.5 ERA. Great stuff. So Brazoban came in the 6th inning, And actually, just a quick note: Canning actually went out for the sixth inning. I believe he walked the first guy, and his fourth pitch was just a ball that was just not even close to being a strike. So Brazabon comes in the sixth to relieve Canning. But again, I've said it in the past, Mendoza's trying to stretch out all of these starting pitchers. He gets Brazabon to come in, and Brazabon does a great job pitching a very solid 2 innings, getting us to the eighth inning. Nunez, again, I don't want to get into him. He falters. Reed Garrett does a decent job, but he was put in a very tough situation. Reed Garrett's ERA on the year is .59, so he's doing well. And then Diaz came in to shut the door, as we spoke about earlier. But great game, Lindor, Alonso, great game. Nimmo, he's actually taking more pitches. I'm seeing flashes of the old Nimmo. Not to say that we're not going to have any power, but Nimmo is taking more pitches. And, McNeil, just getting to McNeil. I want to give McNeil credit. In the seventh inning, and I'm seeing a lot of people pile up on McNeil, and that's kind of another reason why I took down that video. I don't want to pile up on the guy, especially he's coming back from the injury. And I'm a Met fan, so I'm not trying to get down on any of our players. But also too, on the flip side, if it's a guy who's continually not working out, I'm also another person. It comes a point where it is time to turn the page. Too. All right. So Jeff McNeil, give him credit in the seventh inning. I think he put on like a 9 or 10 pitch at bat. So he was taking pitches. He was doing a bit better in terms of working the pitcher. That's what kind of set up that inning. The next batter, Tyron Taylor, would double. Francisco Lindor would homer. So, in terms of working the pitcher, that's why I was upset, because it's not only about, taking pitches per at bat, it's about tiring the pitcher for the next hitter, or, tire the next pitcher so you bring maybe a weaker pitcher in the game next. It's all about strategy. So in terms of strategy, Jeff McNeil did a good job in the seventh inning working that pitcher. And hopefully tiring him out. And Lindor came in and smoked a 3-run bomb. So that was good. And then I also noticed, since I made my video, McNeil was swinging at the first pitch 55% of the time. Not that he listened, but in the last 4 games, that first pitch swing percentage went from 55% to 45%. So if somebody was listening, or somebody noticed that it was so freaking egregious. And then also, Jeff McNeil's pitchers per plate appearance which was ultra low. He was the lowest on the team at 3.2 pitchers per plate appearances. Now he's averaging almost 4 pitchers per plate appearance. So he's actually taking more pitches now, and he is working the count. So again, good job by Jeff. Hopefully he breaks out, for the sake of the Mets. And also too, if he's a player that you want to trade, and you want to get some value for him, you need Jeff to step up in that way too. All right, folks. So let me know what you think. How did you react to the game today? And I know a lot of New York fans are feeling good too, because if you were watching the Knicks game earlier, the New York Knicks came down from 20 points to beat the Boston Celtics. So if you were a basketball fan, this was a good night. And if you're a baseball fan, a Mets fan specifically, this was a good night. Not if you're a Yankee fan. If you're a Yankee fan, you're probably, you probably look in the mirror saying, why, what the hell's going on with Devin Williams? But that's a story for another day. The Padres come from behind, beating the Yankees, but scoring, I believe it was 3 runs, hit a 3-run bomb off of Devin Williams. Not good. It was another meltdown. Spoiled a great game by Carlos Rodon. I just saw the highlights, so if I got any stats wrong, I apologize. But, not good by, Pete Alonso's guy, Devin Williams. But and Devin Williams, he's going into this is his contract year, so he's going to be a free agent next year. That kind of stinks for him. But hopefully, maybe he does what Pete Alonso does. If it doesn't work out this year, dominates next year, gets a big contract. But Pete is looking like he's going in that direction. I know a lot of Mets fans have been, really saying you got to sign the guy. But the fact of the matter is, Pete Alonso is not going to negotiate with one team when he can negotiate with 30 in the offseason. Not going to happen when you are a client of Mr. Scott I don't know his middle name, but Boris, Scott Boris. All right, again, like, subscribe. Thank you, folks. I will speak to everyone soon. Have a great day. Enjoy the comments. I enjoy everybody. You know that. I appreciate you. I will see you very soon. Thank you, thank you, thank you.